Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were stripped from the pages of a Hollywood script. I'm your host, the Outlaw Dr. H.R. Smokenstein THC, and with me as always is my very own Scream Queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smokenstein, the India heart expert, the guts and gore, the gorgeous, the sexy Amy Rose.
Hi.
Now, this topic this week was suggested by a listener on Instagram, and he actually suggested it to me, maybe 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I started doing a little research on it at the time, and I convinced myself I wouldn't be interested. And then I started doing research. He asked me again recently, and I was like, you know what, I did promise this, so I'm going to have a look into this again. And I started researching it, and now it's become one of my favorite fucking topics.
Yep.
I mean, up there with what we'll be discussing next week, which is interesting because this week we're kind of going to look at the influence of your father figure on how you could turn out and how it might have molded a serial killer. And next week we'll be talking about
a mother figure.
how a mother could influence a young man to become a serial killer. So we're going to look at both sides of the coin here.
Sure.
Toxic masculinity and what's the version of female?
Toxic femininity?
See, that's fucked up. We're so bad. We have toxic masculinity. We don't can't even think of something.
What's the female version of toxic masculinity?
Karenology.
Well, then what's the male version of Karenology then? Kevinology? We had this discussion the other night and I can't remember what it was.
Kevin was one of the names. Greg was one of the names.
Gregology.
Chad Moses. I don't know.
Oh god.
So I reckon we should waste no fucking time here and jump right in because this is a long enough script. I probably should have split it in two, but to be honest with you, this story's really exciting. I really love it and I can't wait to talk more about it. So let's get fucking cracking, man. And funny enough, what we're going to talk about this week is I've noticed from my love of true crime that sometimes it's almost like television. Do you know on television how you have the UK office and then they made the American office? Sometimes with serial killers, this happens similarly. America has Ted Dahmer. Who the fuck is Ted Dahmer? It's when Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer had sex and made a baby and it became Ted Dahmer, the ultimate killing machine. Yes, Jeffrey Dahmer. America had Jeffrey Dahmer. And then over in England, you had Dennis Nielsen. Almost for the
longest time though, I thought Jeffrey was English. For a long time until I start, well, at a certain age, you start kind of picking up interest into reading. But I thought he was English. And it was because of Dennis Rader. Or not Dennis Rader. Oh my God, I'm terrible here.
They were all over the place with serial killers on the mind everywhere.
What was his name?
Dennis Nielsen.
Dennis Nielsen. I worked with a lady that lived on the same street as at the time that all this shit would have been happening.
But it's amazing how they look they have similar looks, similar backgrounds, almost identical crimes. Yep. And and even
down to their glasses,
talking the way they talk about things afterwards, everything, they are so similar.
Yeah,
even with Dennis Nielsen, the same way you have a tinge, just a tiny twinge of sympathy for Dahmer. And
you don't have that with Dennis.
No, but this is what I'm saying.
I don't.
Have you heard his full fucking story? It's very similar. It's a lot about homophobia, repressed kind of fucking sexuality, loneliness, alcoholism, not having that support group. These are two guys with early intervention could have been helped. But here we're kind of over the next 4 weeks, we're looking at a very similar situation here. The American version of this guy's kind of fucking, if you're going yin yang, this guy's fucking, if this guy's the yin, the yang is the next 3 weeks. The next 3 weeks, the story is much bigger.
Yeah.
But the story is much bigger because the person we're going to talk about lives longer. This tale is a little shorter because, well, Mark Lewis doesn't make it at the end. But the thing about it is they're the Jeffrey Dahmer, Dennis Nielsen thing, and it's the Ricky Gervais, Stephen Carell thing. There's a sea apart, but they're the same fucking thing.
Yep.
You know, they are so fucking close to being the same person, same circumstances, same kind of fucked up childhood.
Yep.
That built, not same, but similar factors that lead to what happens to both of these guys.
Yeah.
So it's really fucking interesting. So let's get into it. Let's go and start talking about London's camera creep, Mark Lewis.
Okay. So tonight we are going back to London in 1960, a city bustling with post-war optimism, neon signs flickering outside cinemas and cameras clicking on every street corner. But behind the glamour, behind the promise of modernity, was one man's dark obsession. And his name was Mark Lewis. And to understand his crimes, we have to start with his childhood. Because if you ask me, Mark Lewis was doomed from the very beginning.
And before I make my next comment, that's one more little thing I want to point out. 1960. These guys, the guy we're going to talk about next week and the guy we're talking about this week, were literally operating at the exact same time.
Sure were.
Whereas I think Nielsen might have been a little bit before Dahmer. Was he 80s?
Nielsen was 80s, I think.
And Dahmer was 90s.
Dahmer was 90s.
Anyway, yeah, this guy was... saying he was doomed would be putting it lightly. I mean, if you drew up a how to create a serial killer parenting manual, Mark's dad, he basically wrote the first draft.
Yep. That father, Dr. A.N. Lewis, wasn't just any ordinary father. He was a well-respected scientist, psychologist obsessed with fear. And his only son, Mark, wasn't just loved and nurtured like a normal child. He was treated more like a test subject.
Yeah, the classic, your child is just one long lab experiment scenario. Nothing says bedtime story like, smile for daddy's camera while I terrify you with a lizard.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Lewis documented everything on film. He filmed his son being startled awake by sudden lights. He filmed his tears, his panic, and even his trembling hands. And most chillingly, he deliberately staged situations designed to frighten Mark, leaving him alone in the dark, introducing sudden shocks and observing the effects.
You've got to imagine, right? Being a little boy about 5, 6 years old, and instead of your dad teaching you how to ride a bike, he's showing you shoving lizards in your face and, you know, making little notes like subject demonstrates extreme trembling in the left hand.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
Police later uncovered reels of films stored away by Dr. Lewis. According to Scotland Yard report dated 1960, the recordings depict the child, Mark Lewis, subjected to repeated episodes of fear induction. The boy is seen waking up screaming under sudden bright lights. Instances of visible trauma are noted throughout the material.
Translation, the dad was a creep with a movie camera.
Yes. And it wasn't just Dr. Lewis who shaped Mark's psyche. Mark's mother passed away when he was very young. But his father wasted no time in bringing a new woman into the household, a stepmother who quickly became another figure in this bizarre family dynamic.
Imagine losing your mom. And before the flowers are even wilting on the grave, dad's already remarried. And that's a lot for a kid to process. Plus, let's face it, I don't know a lot about Mark Lewis's stepmother, but stepmothers don't have a great reputation. Not according to Walt Disney anyway.
It was a lot for him to process, and reports suggest Mark felt a deep isolation and a kind of emotional abandonment. He never received comfort or explanation, just more experiments and the cold gaze of his father's camera lens.
So mom's gone. Dad's a mad scientist. And the new stepmom, she's not exactly a nurturing, stabilizing influence. Yeah, I'm seeing a recipe for disaster start to simmer here, you know?
Yeah.
It's not going well for fucking Mark in his early days.
But there is one key turning point. And despite the trauma, or maybe because of it, Mark developed a fascination with cameras himself. For his birthday, Dr. Lewis gave young Mark his very first handheld camera.
Now, that's a gift with consequences. Some dads give their kids a football, others hand them a fishing rod. But no, here you go, son. Why don't you document your descent into madness?
Yep.
There's anything wrong with that. I mean, I encourage my kid to go out and make movies every fucking day with his camera and stuff like that. But, you know, if I saw him intentionally trying to put people in terrifying situations just to see their reaction, I might get a bit worried and intervene a little bit.
Yep. And Mark did document his descent into madness. He became obsessed with the mechanics of filmmaking. And by his teenage years, he wasn't just filming his surroundings. He was fixated on capturing fear. The way people's faces contorted, the way their eyes opened, the raw, unfiltered expressions of terror.
Which, let's be honest, isn't a normal hobby. Most teens are out there filming their friends, doing silly skits or trying to catch UFOs on grainy fucking tape. Mark's pointing the camera at people having panic attacks and thinking, yes, this is art.
Exactly.
He would have been a good horror director.
A former neighbor recalled in a statement, Mark was always pointing that camera at us kids. We thought it was a game, but he was never laughing. He wanted to see us jump or scream. That was when he smiled, only when we were frightened.
And that's the creepiest neighborhood kid award right there. Forget water balloon fights. The boy is trying to document your soul leaving your fucking body.
Yeah.
There's fun with cameras, and there's you know, that weirdo who's trying to fucking. And it's not like regular fear. It's not like boo. It's like, I want to see the look. It will be in your eyes in a life-threatening situation.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of fear. Continue.
By the time Mark reached his late teens, the obsession had turned darker. The act of filming fear wasn't enough anymore. He needed to orchestrate it, control it, and elevate it into something more than childish pranks. And this brings us to the edge of his adult life, where his compulsion began to merge with violence.
Like, I mean, just to sum it up again, like, the boy is raised in a house where he himself is seen as an experiment. You know, the mother isn't there, so she's not there to kind of put a stop on this. And I mean, you see this. I think all of us have seen this in parents where, especially fathers who might take, especially up until modern time, or especially like past times, where career is seen as almost, it's hard to work out if your father gives more of a shit about his family or his career. Now, in most cases, the father gives a shit about their career because they want to provide the best for their family. But this man had a passion for what he fucking did. And he was trying to document how fear could be, he was trying to experiment on the human reaction to fear and stuff like that. And there's no mother there to stop and give Mark a hug every now and again and say, it's okay, Daddy's just working, you know?
You
know, let's face it, he would have been better off in a prison rather than a fucking university lab with what he was doing to this fucking poor kid, you know?
Yeah.
And you add in a shiny new camera, what do you fucking get? I mean, like father, like son, your dad is your fucking hero, your role model. You look up to him. You follow in your father's footsteps. I mean, it's a saying there, you know, when it comes to work. So for Mark, if it's all he knows, and when he's handed a camera, he knows that this camera's job is to capture fear, because that's what dad has taught me.
Yeah.
What are you expecting to fucking happen here?
Yeah. Well, you asked there, what do you get? You get a man who would go on to become one of London's most notorious killers of the era. And in the next part of our story, we look at how Mark Lewis moved from voyeurism to murder. How the camera became not just a tool of his expression, but his weapon. and how Londoners began to whisper about the strange deaths of women who always seemed to die in front of the lens.
Spoiler, the police don't love it when your tripod doubles as a murder weapon.
Nope. And by the time Mark reached his early 30s, he was living a quiet life on the surface. Neighbours described him as polite, shy, a bit odd, but harmless. He worked as a camera operator in a London film studio and also took side jobs as a photographer. He rented out rooms in his late father's large house, but mostly kept to himself. What no one knew was that his compulsion, his need to capture fear on film, had grown uncontrollably. It was no longer enough to frighten strangers or film street life. Mark wanted something purer, something final. He wanted to capture the exact moment of death on camera.
You know, it's funny you say neighbours described him as polite, shy, a bit odd, but harmless. That is like a quote that will go on to be used every single time a serial killer is unveiled to their
Shy but
neighbours.
harmless.
Him? Quiet, bit odd, but you know, harmless.
Keen,
Didn't bother
nice
us.
guy, quiet guy, harmless.
And that's when the hobby has gone too far. You know, when he starts looking at the idea of catching the exact moment of death.
Yeah.
I mean, scrapbooking, fine. Bird watching, fine. Filming strangers' final screams, not the most homely. They're not the most, fucking safest of hobbies. They're normal hobbies, you know. It's not on the. When I got a list of hobbies to introduce to my children to try and get them more active, I didn't see that chapter.
No, that was missing. Mark's weapon of choice was as bizarre as it was terrifying. Like you said, he'd modified his camera tripod, attaching a sharpened steel spike to one of his legs, like he made it in prison.
I've seen pictures of it. It's fucking pretty amazing. It was a good idea. For what he was doing.
It was going to catch you off guard. You weren't going to see it coming, basically. And hidden inside the camera itself was a mirror, so that as his victims looked into the lens, the very last thing they saw was their own terrified reflection.
I told you this as well before you recorded. I was like, Mark Lewis to me has like a bit of a sympathetic streak about him as well, because I know about his childhood and all this stuff. And I said a lot about his process to me felt like someone, like you just mentioned Geen there a little bit.
Yeah.
Geen-like, where I don't think he fully... for most of it, it seemed like he didn't understand what he was doing was bad. It was for art. It was for science. It was for...
He was a product killer.
You were...
Oh no, would he be process or product? That's a tricky one, bit of both.
I would say more product, because he wants to film at the end. I don't think the process of killing was what the enjoyment. It was the look on the face.
Of fear. Okay.
So, but I suppose that is the process too as well. But you need the look of fear, because once the look is gone, but then you have the product of the camera. You do got guys who land in the middle.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, for me, a lot of my sympathy melted away when I found out about the mirror that he put on the fucking camera so that the victim could see the fear as well. Because in that eyes, I know to him it might be amplifying the fear to the maximum point that he can get the most. It's like a director who just doesn't read, a director living outside of reality. You know what I mean? It's twisted, but it's almost poetic at the same time. Smile for the camera, and oh, by the way, the camera's about to fucking kill you.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's a lot, but a lot of my sympathy just kind of drifts because of that fucking one mirror.
Yeah.
If that mirror wasn't there,
you'd have a bit of
that sympathy would be a bit more heavy on me. You know, weigh a little more on me.
Yeah. And Mark's murders weren't spontaneous. They were carefully staged productions. He chose his victims, set up his camera, and orchestrated the scene so he could capture that split second of absolute, unfiltered terror. And so, on one cold London night, he committed his first known murder. The victim was a local sex worker, unnamed in contemporary reports, but later referred to in police documents simply as Victim 1. Witnesses saw her enter an alleyway with Mark shortly after midnight. Moments later, she was dead, impaled by the hidden blade in his tripod, her final moments caught on film.
Imagine being a detective called to the scene. You got a woman dead in an alleyway. Well, she wasn't in an alleyway. The video that you see of her when you look up the news report, she's in the alleyway, but she had actually brought him into... she was a prostitute.
Yeah.
She brought him into her home, her little apartment. And that's where they found her dead. But there was no sign of a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he had solicited her.
Oh, yeah.
And meanwhile, the killer is walking away calmly with a camera slung over his shoulder like he's just sightseeing.
Yeah.
You know? Like it was no big fucking deal.
Yeah, yeah. And according to the coroner's report, the wound was precise, clean, and fatal. A single thrust to the neck region caused rapid blood loss. Death would have been nearly instantaneous.
Yeah, almost like it was designed that way. You know, funny how scientists' kids pick up the efficiency thing, you know?
I mean, he wanted to see the fear, not the suffering.
Which again brings up that kind of processed product fucking debate again, because obviously he wanted to get this done quick. It wasn't a case of he's going to play with the entrails afterwards, you know?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
In that description, I suppose, the process, he would be a process killer.
Yeah. That's
he
true.
just enjoyed watching the process over and over and over and over again later.
Yeah. At first, police suspected a client dispute, a fight that turned violent. There were no witnesses to the actual attack, and the only clue was a strange, shallow cut on the victim's face. Detectives couldn't believe it, couldn't explain it even.
Well, I mean, again, how often have we said this? Sex workers...
Well, there's a reason she's just called victim 1. It's terrible.
They're the less dead. They're all, as far as the police were concerned, especially in 1960s, harlot, you know, Jezebel. Forget that girl, you know, she knew what she was in.
Yeah.
She knew what she was getting into. She knew this was a possibility kind of thing. Which for the record was like, you know, he wasn't just killing, he was turning the murder into a horror film starring the victim themselves. Like, so I mean, this is of course the detectives would struggle to fucking explain this. This is 1960.
Absolutely.
Having a portable camera in 1960 was a fucking rare thing, you know? It wasn't like today where every fucking guy and kid and child and everywhere that has a camera on their phone, a camera attached to their house, a camera fucking hanging off of fucking...
My dad's family had a good few portable cameras. We have kind of 50s and 60s portable cameras at home.
But it was more of a specialist kind of It wasn't a household fucking thing.
No.
Do you know?
Yeah.
You had to have an interest in that as a hobby.
Yeah, I think the one that we have at home might have come from my American
and it would have been costly.
Yeah, it would have been.
It wouldn't have been a cheap fucking put together. No. It wouldn't be something you just bought a load of gear off of fucking Temu or Amazon or anything like that. It would have been, you went to a photography shop, you probably fucking saved up a lot of money for it and you bought bits as you went along and it would have cost enough, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But Mark wasn't finished after this first victim. In fact, the first kill seemed to unlock something, and he began planning his next production. Not long after, he targeted his second victim, a woman named Dora, an actress who worked in a film studio where Mark himself operated cameras.
And this is where it gets extra chilling. He wasn't lurking in alleyways anymore. He was bringing death right into his workplace, surrounded by people hiding in plain fucking sight. Yep. You know? I mean, like, usually it's hard to find a serial killer because they pick random victims, not people close to them, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, this is out of the ordinary for what we usually talk about.
Exactly. Mark lured Dora into a studio set under the pretense of filming a screen test. She posed in front of his camera, smiling, chatting, but the entire time, Mark's tripod spike was waiting. According to production staff, no one thought it unusual. Films were busy, chaotic places, film sets. A cameraman asking an actress to run through a scene alone, like that would barely raise eyebrows.
Well, it was a perfect camouflage. And you have to remember at the same time, Dora is an aspiring actress. Yes, she's getting roles, but they're not big roles.
So you're going to say yes to pretty much about anything.
Mark is an aspiring director. He works on the film sets as a cameraman. He wants to be a director someday. So this is like the two of them going off to do an indie production to kind of hone their skills and show what they're capable of. So they're both, she's very willing. Obviously, you know yourself, actresses are going to be like, yeah, I'll take that opportunity. 100% I'll take that opportunity. Any opportunity to help me get up the ladder, I want to do it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's the perfect camouflage. Everybody's already pretending to be scared or glamorous for the cameras. Nobody realizes the guy behind the lens is genuinely making a snuff fucking film.
Oh, yeah. And when Dora's body was discovered later, detectives noticed the same strange wound pattern. The similarity between her death and the first victim began to raise suspicion. A Scotland Yard memorandum dated March 1960 reads,
"The positioning of the body, lack of defense wounds, and singular fatal injury suggests a calculated method. There is strong reason to believe these cases are linked." Translation, we've got a serial killer. But before we go any further, there's something that I forgot to put into the script that is really fucking interesting that I think we should talk about. And that is how Dora was found.
Oh, in the case.
Yeah, so he put it, basically they were on a film set that Market was already working on for a big film production. I can't remember the movie they were working on. But in the scene, the actress of this film was supposed to be buying a new suitcase. And so the scene is set up like a big fucking suitcase shop. And there was this big trunk there as well. Mark had basically left the body in the trunk to be discovered. And the next day on set, when the actress who was playing her role and filming her scene opened the trunk and looked inside, she was the one to discover the body. So let alone was he hiding in plain fucking sight, but he was there to see reactions to the body being found.
Oh, absolutely.
He was there to kind of revel in
see more fear.
Exactly. You're not just getting the fear of the person who died, you're getting the fear of the people who see what's around them, of what could come to them next. It's so close to them and all that. And that's a really interesting aspect to this, is the fact that he chose to leave the body there to be discovered. You know? It's like we see it a lot with serial killers, the staging process. And this was, again, from a guy who wants to be a director and who's already staging these big productions for his murders. This was a big fucking point for him as well. I'm surprised he wasn't fucking standing there with fucking camera reel rolling, going crazy, enjoying every bit of that. But that might have been a bit too obvious and got him caught.
Yep. Mark's murders weren't just crimes. They were performances.
Exactly.
He rewatched his films in the privacy of his home, reliving the fear he had orchestrated. And disturbingly, his obsession was growing harder to hide.
Right, because he's got literal reels of his victims' dying moments stacked in his fucking house, you know? You can only tell your tenants, don't mind the projector noises for so long before they start asking questions. But saying that, I mean, if you're to look at it from that point of view, then our neighbours should have had the cops to our door a long, long time ago, because there's constantly, more TV, so...
One tenant in particular, Helen Stevens, began to notice Mark's odd behaviour. Helen was a kind, curious young woman who lived upstairs behind her with her blind mother. She often spoke with Mark, sensing his loneliness, and even asked him about his cameras.
And here's where it gets complicated. Helen wasn't just another potential victim. Mark actually liked her, which, of course, makes the whole thing even a little bit creepier.
Yep. Helen once asked to see his films. Mark reluctantly showed her not his murders, but the disturbing footage from his childhood, the experiments his father filmed. Helen was shocked, disturbed, but also sympathetic. She saw not just a killer in waiting, but a damaged man still under his father's shadow.
Yeah, this is true crime 101, isn't it? Somewhere in the middle of the bloodbath, there's always one neighbour or a girlfriend saying, "But he seems so sweet to me."
Meanwhile, police pressure was building. With 2 women dead under similar circumstances, Scotland Yard began canvassing the neighbourhoods, interviewing anyone who might have seen or heard something unusual. One witness described a quiet man with a camera leaving the vicinity on the first crime scene. Another recalled seeing Dora walking into the studio with a tall man carrying film equipment.
That's it. At the first scene, do you know how I said you have camera footage of the body out in the alleyway? That's Mark's footage. Mark was, like most criminals, returned to the scene of the crime the next morning and videotaped it. And when he was asked by a passerby who what news team he worked with, he just gave him a news, a television channel, and pretended to be working for the news, So you think someone would have connected the dots, like, hey, we've got a camera guy who's always lurking around the victims. Could it be the camera guy? But again, 1960.
Yeah, like in 1960, the idea of filming a man filming murders was beyond comprehension. Right. Detectives weren't trained to think about cameras as weapons. Like, it was too unusual, too bizarre.
Yeah, they're looking for knives, guns, blunt instruments, not a tripod turned into a horror fucking prop. Yep. Again, the idea of a snuff movie was completely out of the fucking ordinary. Because, like I said, very few people are going to have a small handheld camcorder.
Mm-hmm.
And especially one where they could do a big production. So the idea of a snuff movie would entail a studio. It would entail a fucking gang of people making something like that.
Yeah.
It's just out of the ordinary, you know?
Yeah.
At this point, people are struggling to find fucking pornography, let alone fucking...
Yeah. Still, the pressure was on. Newspapers began reporting the deaths, dubbing the killer the Eye of London, a nod to the idea that he seemed to want his victims right up to that fatal moment.
I like that one. I mean, I've heard the camera
The Eye of
creep, I've
London,
heard the tripod killer, but the Eye of London.
Well,
It's a good one.
not anymore. The London Eye is the fucking Ferris wheel.
So, from the Daily Chronicle from April 1916, a second young woman has been found slain under mysterious circumstances. Police have yet to confirm a connection, but sources suggest the crimes bear disturbing similarities. Women are advised to remain vigilant, particularly when approached by strangers, which is classic newspaper code for, we don't know what's happening, but we're going to terrify you anyway.
And Mark, well, he kept filming. He kept killing. With each victim, his compulsion deepened. The camera wasn't just his weapon. It was an accomplice, his confidant, the one witness who could truly see the fear he was desperate to preserve.
It's almost like he wasn't killing people at all. He was killing for the film. The victims are just props. And that's what makes one of the strange, it's just what makes him one of the strangest serial killers in British history.
Yeah.
I mean, you do have that kind of fucked up thing of like, you know, I've even described it before, you know, when we're watching horror movies, the reason why I wouldn't say people who enjoy horror movies are psychopaths because they're watching people getting killed is because we are very aware that the people are going to stand up after the director screams cut and walk home and live their lives.
Yeah.
And in this case, you'd have to wonder, was Mark's mind working the same way?
Same way.
Was it a case of,
it's
it's
not
fine,
real.
once I'm finished filming, these people are irrelevant.
Like the
they're
Beatles,
objects, they're
John
just-
Lenon's killer, and he was like, "Oh, I wasn't killing a real person. I didn't shoot a real person."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that kind
yeah.
of fucking shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in our next section, we are going to follow Mark's escalating crimes as the police close in and as his relationship with Helen Stevens threatens to unravel everything.
Trust me, things get messy. Let's just say you don't want to be around this guy when the camera's rolling.
Yep. As Mark Lewis's crimes continued, his double life grew more precarious. On the one hand, he was the quiet tenant, the polite cameraman who lived in the big house his father left behind. On the other, he was orchestrating death scenes with cold precision, documenting fear as though it were the only thing worth preserving. But something complicated his private horrors. His growing relationship with Helen Stevens, his tenant upstairs.
Tenant downstairs, actually. He lived upstairs.
He did live upstairs. Yeah, sorry, I got that wrong.
Yeah, so he had like the house was left to him. He kept the upstairs for himself and rented the rooms downstairs for upkeep on the house.
Yeah.
And here's where we see the cliche but fascinating dynamic: the serial killer who thinks he's actually in love. You know, it's common. I'm always saying it. If you think you can't get a woman, look at BTK, look at fucking the Green River Killer, look at Ted Bundy, look at fucking Richard Ramirez, who was getting groupie
I
letters.
don't understand
I
that
saw
one.
some of
That's
the pictures
beyond
he was
me.
being sent. They were hot ass fucking women, man. I don't get it.
Nope. And Helen wasn't like the women Mark lured into his trap. She was curious, warm, and unusually open-minded. When she asked about his work, Mark didn't show her the footage of his murders. Instead, he showed her something almost more disturbing: the reels of film his father made when he was a child. On those reels, Helen saw the terror experiments, the sudden lights, the lizards, the loneliness. She saw a boy who was never comforted, only observed.
Imagine sitting on a date and the guy says, "Want to watch a movie?" Netflix and chill is fucked up. His Netflix and chill is fucked up. Whole movies of him sobbing while his dad shoves reptiles in his face. That's not exactly dinner and a movie material.
No.
That's all I'm saying. Your
Yeah.
Netflix and chill game is off, Mark.
Yup.
You know?
But Helen, rather than recoiling, felt pity. She told him she was sorry for what he had endured. And Mark, a man who lived only for fear, seemed almost confused by her kindness.
She seems like such a lovely woman. I've seen her in interviews. I just think there's nothing but goodness in this person.
Yeah.
She was trying to find the goodness in him, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about confused by her kindness. This is probably the first time anyone in his life's responded with empathy instead of just sticking another camera in his face, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Helen's blind mother, however, was not fooled.
That's the extra senses kicking in.
Exactly.
She knows.
Yep. Living upstairs, she had heard everything. And she told her daughter that Mark gave her the chills. In one recollection, she said,
"My spider senses are tingling."
"That man moves too quietly. He's hiding something. I can feel it." Well, she's not wrong. Somebody who's nothing to hide is no problem walking around like tiptoeing.
On that where she said you shouldn't trust somebody that you can't hear walking around.
Exactly.
And she wasn't wrong.
She's not wrong.
Mean, blind moms in true crime always know what's up. They, like I said, the spidey senses. They start tingling. You know something's up.
Sixth
You know
sense.
something's wrong.
Meanwhile, Mark's killings escalated. He sought victims not only in the anonymity of the streets, but in professional circles. He murdered another young woman connected to his film studio work, luring her under the guise of a screen test. The pattern was becoming clearer. Each victim was killed in front of his camera. The same wound, the same chilling staging.
See, the thing about it was he had this kind of extra, like I said, there was one thing about Dora, right, where she was an extra who wanted to up her level.
Yeah.
Mark had a side gig
Okay.
where there was this local news agent. Like I said,
know
this
where
is
this
1960.
going, yeah.
Getting dirty magazines, getting dirty pictures, the internet Pornhub, they didn't exist
No.
So getting dirty magazines and pictures was kind of hot.
You'd have to buy them under
Was
the
your
guise of
porn.
educational material.
And someone had to make them.
Mm-hmm.
So this news agent had actually hired Mark, and over the news agents, he had a little room where he hired women to come in and model and take pictures and edit sets and all that kind of shit. And Mark would do those photos for him. But you know yourself, I mean, a lot of these girls that are going in with the idea of modeling have higher aspirations.
Of course they do.
You know,
Yeah.
they don't want to just be fucking nude models. They want to be actresses. They want to be stars. And this is just a jumping off point. So when someone like Mark, who works in the film industry, turns to you and says, "Well, I'm going doing a screen test," I mean, you actually look perfect for the part.
Take some headshots of you.
Why don't you come on in and we'll run a scene and we'll see how you get on.
Exactly.
Girl's going to jump at a chance, especially when you've been around Mark enough and you can see he's a shy, quiet, timid guy, seems safe, do you know?
Yeah. Yep. Detectives at this point were starting to piece things together. Internal memos describing the possibility that the killer wasn't just striking randomly, he was filming his crimes.
Yeah, one inspector wrote, "It is a working hypothesis that the murderer records the moments of fear. We believe a camera is present at the scenes, though no equipment has been recovered. Public assistance may be sought to identify individuals seen carrying large cameras or tripods near the times of the killings." That's the moment where police went, "Wait, is this guy literally filming fucking murder?"
Yep.
And half the room probably laughed until they realized, oh no.
That might actually
be it.
Yeah.
Shit.
But Mark was clever. He never let the equipment out of his hands. And to casual observers, he was just another cameraman working in the studios, working on the streets, his tripod always by his side.
That's the genius and the madness. The murder weapon doubles as the professional tool.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody questions a man carrying a tripod.
Nope.
When he's supposed to be filming, I mean, it's what he's going to have with him. You know, if he gets searched, there's no knife on him, there's no gun on him, there's no piece of fucking string to fucking wrap around anyone's neck, there's no gloves, there's no fucking mask.
Unless there's blood on the outside of the camera, they're not going to suspect it as a murder
He
weapon.
just has his tools of the trade, you know? And I mean, like, if I came at you with a tripod, you'd laugh at me. You know, be like, what the fuck are you going to do with that? That fucking
until you unsheath it.
You fucking hit me with the tripod and the tripod will bend in half. I'll have a headache and you'll be in trouble.
Yep.
That's about it. But this guy, he knew what he was doing.
Exactly. And one of the most chilling episodes came when Helen's mother confronted Mark directly. Alone in her flat, she asked him to describe his films. And although she couldn't see it, she listened intently as he tried to explain. He told her that he filmed fear, that he wanted to capture the moment of truth in a human face. According to later testimony from Helen, her mother told Mark, "You're a very sick young man."
Direct, honest, no sugarcoating it, blind or not, she read him like a fucking book.
Yep. Mark was visibly disturbed by the conversation. Helen's mother could not be a victim in the way others had been. She could not see her reflection in his mirror. And for Mark, that ruined the purity of the act.
It's like he needed the victims to confront themselves, to see their own fear in the final moments. Without that, it wasn't the same ritual. And what have we learned from serial killers? Ritual. There is a reason why you're able to link serial killings.
Like an element of OCD.
They can't help themselves but to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. Yep. The serial killer that isn't going to get caught picks random people and kills in random ways. It's why Ramirez got away with it for as long as he fucking did, because he picked whoever he just picked randomly, and there was no set MO to his style of murder. Exactly. He might strangle you, he might stab you, he might shoot you. You don't fucking know. Didn't matter what age you were, didn't matter what race you were, didn't matter what creed you were. Richie was just looking for an open fucking window and a chance, you know?
Basically.
So, I mean, ritual is the norm. Richard Ramirez was outside of the norm, you know? It was, so this guy here, Mark, he's just following the fucking rules of every other serial killer. It's a compulsion. So her being blind, not being able to see her fear, makes her
not a
null
victim.
And void.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill you because what's the fucking point?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know?
Meanwhile, Scotland Yard was closing in. Detectives traced his victims' movements, realizing that several of them were connected to film sets. They began discreetly interviewing staff, including camera operators.
A report dated June 1960 states the possibility exists that a member of the crew may be exploiting his access. The deaths of at least 3 women aligned with filming sessions arranged outside official schedules. Translation, there's a killer in the film crew, but we're not sure which guy behind the camera is stabbing people instead of loading film.
Still, suspicion hadn't yet landed squarely on Mark. He was quiet, professional, and unremarkable. That's a bit of an insult. I would hate if somebody called me unremarkable. Anyway, the kind of man who slipped through the cracks.
But that is the story with so many killers.
They're
the killers,
basically
being unremarkable, it allows you to have 2 jobs. You could be a killer or a spy. They say that about spies. Like, spies aren't like James Bond. James Bond is too flamboyant and out there to be an actual spy.
He couldn't go under the radar.
A real spy is someone who could stand in a room and not be fucking noticed. You know? So like they're not loud, obvious villains twirling their fucking
like
mustaches,
dastardly,
like, you know. Exactly, you know. They're the guy next door who smiles politely but keeps something horrifying locked away.
Yeah,
you know.
And back in the house, Helen's curiosity only grew. She trusted Mark and even defended him to her mother. She believed that there was good in him, that he was a victim of his father more than a true predator.
She actually wanted to work with him. Outside, they had a bit of it was a budding romantic relationship for sure. Yeah. But she was a writer. And she wanted to write a children's book, but she felt like illustrating the ideas for her book wouldn't have the full effect. She wanted to photograph them, but her publishers had told her that the photographs would be near impossible to take. When she discussed that with Mark, who was an avid fucking cameraman and photographer and all that stuff, he was like, no, nothing's impossible. This is a challenge. This is awesome. Yes, of course I want to be involved in this. So that just attracted him even more to her. You know, he wanted to do this. It's amazing for him, you know. This is what gave him one of these cases. If he had met Helen before he started killing, Mark's life could have taken a completely different direction. You know? Love of a good woman, Amy. Love of a good woman.
Mark, however, in turn seemed torn. On one hand, he craved the perfection of his filmed murders. On the other hand, Helen offered him something that he had never known, and that was compassion.
And here's where it gets messy, because compassion doesn't erase compulsion. You can't hug the urge to kill out of someone once they've already killed. Like I said, even if she had met him before the first kill,
possibility,
we might have a chance here.
Yeah.
Once he's done it once, this is like a fucking heroin addict. Once you've injected yourself with the fucking juice, you're going to keep going for it. You're going to want it more and more and more. And the more you do it, the more often you need it, and the bigger dose you need to get that fucking high, to get that feeling, you know?
But Helen believed she could help him. So she later told friends, he was so sad, so very lonely. I thought if I showed him love, maybe he could stop.
Oh, Helen. Sweet summer child.
The press, meanwhile, was in a frenzy. Newspapers gave the killer names like the Camera Fiend and the Tripod Slayer. Rumours spread that police had discovered reels of film, though in truth they hadn't found anything concrete yet.
So we have an article from the Evening Gazette, July 1916. Women across London are being warned to exercise caution when approached by men carrying photographic equipment. Scotland Yard has not confirmed whether the so-called Camera Fiend is responsible for the recent spat of killings, but detectives are urging vigilance. Which must have been a bad, it must have been a bad time to be an innocent tourist who's just trying to take the pictures.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Even every passerby looking at you like, he's going to stab me with his Kodak. I wouldn't mind. He's like the first as well in a line of this, isn't he? Do you know? Because, I mean, Jerry Budos used to do the exact same fucking thing. I'm an amateur photographer. Why don't you come and I'll take pictures of you? I'll make you a star. You know, a modeling career.
You'd be famous because you were
your
killed.
Fucking boob is a paperweight. You know, this shit happened. But I mean, it is like something that you see as almost like an American trope in movies and TV shows of the sleazy guy coming up to girls in the mall and being like, "Oh, I'm a photographer for models."
But I mean, it happens in the Fame, and it's like the Fame, the movie, like, and it's a really heartbreaking scene, like, you know. But by this point, Mark's murders had become too frequent to ignore. The police publicly acknowledged a serial offender was at work, and patrols increased around film districts and Soho, where many of the victims had last been seen. And Mark, perhaps sensing the noose tightening, grew even more reckless. His killings became bolder, closer to home, and he filmed obsessively.
He's spiraling.
Yeah.
Want to let the dog do his thing for a second? You done? No. This is not the time to interrupt filming.
He's going to hop up in it.
Or you have some production notes? No? Go on, over to bed. Good boy. Back behind the camera. Got notions. He thinks he's like a fucking star. Anyway, Mark's spiraling. It's a classic pattern. Like I say, it's like a heroin addict. They start with a small dose, it'll get you high, but eventually you're going to need more and more and more and more. It's like a berserker fucking mode. Like Bundy when he was fucking finishing off. When he broke out of prison that time and suddenly he's just fucking kill. When he went on that Florida run where he just fucking went killing fucking from one house to the next. It's like Michael fucking Myers when he got out of fucking the sanitarium, and it was just in 2018 he was just going from one house to the next, just murdering. The classic pattern. Start cautious, then confidence builds, you're not getting caught, then paranoia, then desperation, and all the while the police are finally catching up with you because you are slipping. You are getting too confident in yourself and you think you can get away with fucking murder, so you're going to do it more often, and you need to do it more often. It's a compulsion you have to fucking fill, like, you know.
But Helen remained the wild card in his story. She believed she could save him. And Mark, caught between his obsession and the first human connection he'd ever truly felt, walked a razor's edge.
Spoiler alert, the razor's edge is going to cut you deep.
Yep. By the late 1960s, the man Scotland Yard had come to call the Camera Fiend was growing desperate. Mark Lewis's double life was unravelling. He was no longer content with secrecy. His need to film fear was consuming him, driving him toward a finale that seemed almost inevitable.
And this is the part of the story where every serial killer starts to slip. The early kills are careful, cautious, but like I said earlier, by the end, the ego and the obsession has just taken over.
Exactly.
I have gotten away with murder. I will continue to get away with murder.
Exactly.
They can't catch me.
Yep. Mark had filmed several women's death by this point, each reel hidden in his private room in the large, decaying house. He rewatched them compulsively, fixating on the final frame of terror. But these films weren't just trophies, they were evidence. And Scotland Yard was closing in. Detectives had linked all the deaths to film studios in nearby locations, and they were quietly interviewing cameramen and operators. Mark, though still not the prime suspect, was no longer invisible.
The noose is tightening. Do you know what I mean? Instead of laying low, he's playing into the MO. Like, he's planning his Magnus opus.
Magnum opus.
He knows. I think, and you see this with serial killers as well, when they do go into this berserker mode. It is a case of, I truly believe, like, I do say, like, you know, that they get messy, they get sloppy because they believe they're invincible and that they can't get caught because they're getting away with murder.
Yeah.
But there is this point where they realize this is going to come to an end soon. Mm-hmm. I'm in the fucking paper every single fucking day. Mm-hmm. The police are now saying that they have so many people on the team, that they're looking at so many. You can read in the newspaper every fucking day how much closer they're getting to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So eventually he's got to start planning, well, what's the big finish? And then when you're, especially for a guy like this who feels like he is putting on a production, for him, it's, we need the final scene.
Yeah. We
need the big scene. We need the big fucking ending that's going to make everybody go, wow, what a fucking movie.
Yep. Mark's final crime spree began with a young stand-in actress at the studio. He lured her with the promise of private filming, just as he had with Dora. But by this time, he seemed almost unhinged, driven less by careful planning and more by frenzy. Her death bore the same hallmarks: the tripod spike, the mirror, the staged terror. But unlike the earlier crimes, Mark was sloppy. He was seen entering the studio with her late at night, and staff remembered his nervous demeanour.
It's almost, that's always the giveaway, right? In the beginning, he's invisible, just another quiet man with a camera, but now everyone notices him. He's sweaty, twitchy, dragging people off set at odd hours, and the cracks, they're bound to start showing, you know? Yeah. I mean, I even remember BTK saying, like, you know, that after his killings, the sound of a fucking police siren would make him fucking jump. Yeah. Because it's like, they're coming. They're finally coming for me, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, they got it. It's, again, not to bring it back to drugs again, but it's like guys who fucking become cocaine addicts. Yeah. The paranoia, they need to keep taking it, but that paranoia is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. That's why so many fucking major league gangsters end up getting taken down. They get high in their own supply, and suddenly they start fucking looking at everybody around them in their circle and being like, who the fuck is fucking with me? And he's visible, and then the guys underneath are going, well, that guy's starting to crack. And if he cracks, our business is fucked, then we could end up in prison. Someone's going to have to get rid of this guy. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's very similar in that regard, that, you know, people around him are seeing it, which is, why is he so edgy? The police keep showing up and this guy keeps fucking sweating it every time they turn up. Maybe we need to start talking about Mark a little bit more, you know?
So after that murder, the police finally had enough to act. Detectives requested to search equipment rooms, lockers, and personal effects of the crew.
A Scotland Yard internal report noted, subject M. Lewis, camera operator, reserved demeanour, witnessed with victim prior to disappearance. Interview recommended. And boom, the spotlight is fucking on him. For the first time, Mark is no longer the observer. He's the one being observed.
But before police could move in, Mark's obsessions drove him to his most chilling moment yet, bringing Helen into his secret world. He invited her into his private room where the projector whirred and the reels of death waited. He showed her the films, and one by one, the murderers unspooled before her eyes. Women screaming, eyes wide, and the camera capturing their final terror.
Can you imagine that moment? You think the guy you like is just a little eccentric, a bit sad, and then suddenly you're watching proof that he's a serial killer.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, like, how would your fucking mind work in that situation? And that'll tell you as well where Mark was at. Mark had to fucking know at this point the game is up. Mark has to fucking know that they're going to catch me. If he's showing this to her and he's bringing her to this fucking point, he's got, and then on the other side of it, a point you made to me when we were discussing this off air, and you said, like, when you were reading about Mark, that he was terrified of the idea of scaring Helen in case the fear in her face activated the side of him that will cause him to fucking kill. Yeah. So
Helen said that what he kept saying to her was, as long as you're safe, as long as you're not afraid, as long as I don't see your fear, basically. Like, so the thing was, he was telling her, if you get scared and I can see it in you, you're next.
So you'd have to wonder when we get to this point, because I know what's going to happen next. You know what's going to happen next. We're about to tell the people what happens next.
Yeah.
was that always the original plan? Or had he decided that Helen just had to go too, and that's why he showed her what he showed her to see if her reaction, or if he got.
Well, I think that because she was showing him that's it. Because she showed him compassion, he thought that this could be a life partner for him.
And was it a test to see how she'd react to it, or if he could hold himself, or was there enough human still left inside him that the love for her was strong enough to stop him in when he sees the fear in her face?
Yeah,
and apparently maybe it was.
Well, Helen was horrified, and she begged him to stop. She told him that he needed help and that he could turn himself in. But Mark was past the point of redemption. To him, these films weren't crimes. They were masterpieces.
And in his twisted mind, Helen was supposed to be part of the grand finale. That's what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what part was she to play? Was she going to be a partner? Was she going to be the next victim? Or was she simply there to fucking help run the equipment for what was about to fucking happen?
Helen's blind mother, who had long suspected Mark's darkness, intervened. She confronted him directly in his room. And though she couldn't see the films, she could hear them, sense them. She told him he was evil. Mark, enraged and unbalanced, lashed out. He attacked her, and not killing her, but terrifying her. It was as though he wanted to prove his power, even over someone who could not see.
And the moment is chilling because it shows that for him, it wasn't just about the murder. There was a dominance factor, but about forcing people into his world of fear, whether they could see or not.
Yeah.
Now, again, we said she was lucky because she didn't fit the ritual, you know?
But in spearing Helen's mother, he revealed something else. His obsession with vision, with sight. Like, she couldn't see her reflection in the mirror before when he placed in the mirror that he placed before his victims, so she couldn't fulfill his ritual, like you said. Helen's mother later told police, he held something over me, something sharp. I could feel it, but he didn't finish it. I told him he was the devil. He said nothing. The police, meanwhile, were closing in on the house, and surveillance had begun. Detectives believed evidence of the crimes might be hidden there, and Mark knew it.
Which is why he sets the stage for the final act, literally. Do you know, this is why he is... This is why we get to where we get to. He knows it's time that if I want to finish this film, the budget is spent. The film reels are coming to an end. I gotta get to the last scene.
Exactly.
It's time to finish up.
Yeah. In the final hours of his life, Mark set up his room like a film set. Cameras, tripods, lights, everything arranged with clinical precision. He loaded the reels, prepared the spike, and began filming himself. He explained, speaking aloud into the camera, that his life had been one long study in fear. First as his father's subject, then as the director of his own experiments. He confessed that he had been building towards this moment, capturing his own death on film.
The ultimate performance in his eyes. He wasn't as fat, couldn't just be satisfied in filming others' fear. He needed to, I mean, it's the bookend, isn't it? He was the subject at the start, so he needs to be the subject at the end. Everything in between was just more experimenting before he got to that last bit. It's almost in his mind poetic, isn't it? Yep. You know, this is how I go out. You know, we have to see. It's almost like if he's the subject, everyone he killed in between was like to control to see does he fit in with the rest of society, of what society's vision of fear is.
Yeah. Helen, realizing what he intended, tried to stop him, and she begged him not to go through with it, but Mark was determined. He explained that he had designed his equipment so that the final scene would be complete. The camera, the mirror, the spike, all turned upon himself. According to police reports, when they entered the house, they found Helen screaming, restrained but unharmed. And they found Mark Lewis dead, impaled on his own device, the camera still whirring, recording the last moment of his life.
It's morbid, but in a way, he stayed true to his method. Every victim had to see their own terror reflected in the mirror in the end, and so did he.
Yeah.
No, the only thing about it, though, is according to Helen herself, there was almost peace in Mark in his suicide. That, ironically, he didn't really see fear in his day. The fear was there momentarily, but once the spike hit him, relief entered his face, and his final moments alive as he bled out were him at peace.
Yeah.
Not in fear for the first time in his life. The fear was gone. The weight was lifted, and Mark almost left the world peacefully in his own way.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. The police seized the reels, dozens of them. Childhood footage from his father, murder after murder, and finally his own death. Scotland Yard never released the films to the public, but their existence became one of London's darkest urban legends. The reels of the camera fiend. Too horrifying to be shown, but too important to be destroyed.
Some say they're still locked in an evidence locker somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'd say they can fucking stay there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't need to be seeing that shit.
No. The official coroner's verdict was suicide, but the investigation left behind a chilling legacy. Mark Lewis wasn't just a killer. He was a man molded by fear, raised in a laboratory of terror, and doomed by the obsession that defined his life.
He turned his trauma into an art form. If you can call it that, a horrific fucking murderous art form.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny, again, like I said, what we're talking about this week, what we're talking about next week, and it's a live action, we're going to be talking about a man named Ed Gein. And the three of these people are very, very similar.
Yeah.
Very, very similar in the way their fucked up childhoods and the fear that was instilled in them from their fucked up childhoods led to more fucked up things. And that, and in all three cases, they turned their trauma and their murderous actions into a form of art, at least in their own eyes, you know?
Yeah.
So it's amazing. You're going to see that as a topic for our Halloween topic this year. It's arts and crafts with murders.
Yep.
Art Attack, featuring Mark Lewis, Ed Gein, and Norman Bates.
And while Mark's story ended in 1960, the questions linger. How much of his violence was born from his father's experiments? Could he have been saved if someone had intervened earlier? Or was he always destined to live and die through the lens of a camera?
I feel like I've answered these questions. Yeah. You know, I do believe that Helen getting to him earlier could have made a massive difference to what happened to Mark Lewis going forward. I think his father's influence had fucked him up beyond belief. But I think that tiny bit of fucking compassion entering his life just entered a little bit too fucking late.
Yeah.
And if it had been a little bit earlier, Mark Lewis might not be a topic of discussion today. Do you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe he would be. Maybe he'd be a famous director. Maybe he'd be a famous horror director. Maybe he'd be something different. But from what I can see, it's the lack of fucking, again, we talk about nature, and nurture is really the fucking thing that was the nail in Mark Lewis's coffin.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And we can see this here, that there is no question about this. It's a question you can't it's a question that they feel can't be answered, but it is. I mean, you know, he might remain one of the most disturbing figures in British crime history, but he's one of these guys like Ed Gein that I have this tiny bit of sympathy for, because I could see that what was put in front of him, how he was raised, how he had to live his life, really set him on the path that he ended up on.
Yeah. The boy who was filmed in fear became the man who filmed fear in others until the camera finally turned on himself.
And that's the final reel.
Yep. So that was the story of Mark Lewis. From a childhood of fear experiments to a life spent chasing terror through the lens of a camera until he finally turned the spotlight and the spike on himself.
And I've got to say, this might be one of the bleakest cases we've ever covered for an ending. Usually the serial killers, you at least get some kind of motive you can wrap your head around: greed, jealousy, revenge. But with Mark, it was what? Like, it was art.
Yeah.
It was because I had a camera and trauma and I wanted to create something, you know. It's bizarre.
And that's what makes him so unique. Like most killers are driven by material gain or personal vendetta, but Mark was driven by obsession. And he didn't just want to kill, he wanted to record, preserve, and study. And it wasn't just murder that satisfied him, it was the moment of fear.
I don't think the murder fucking satisfied him at all, to be honest with you. I think it was strictly the fear. And I think it was strictly something that was driven into him. And it's not like he was hiding it well either. I mean, the whole tripod with a sword hidden in it, it's well, I suppose it is. I wouldn't think of looking for it.
But isn't it? It singles you out, like, doesn't it? It's pretty unique, like.
But he hit it. I mean, it's not like he was walking around with a tripod that the blade was showing. There was a cover for that.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
He had to unsheathe
before he was caught, it was
blade.
inconspicuous. Yeah. Afterwards, though, a kind of, the guy with that kill people with the camera. Well, then, everybody knows who that is. But remember, though, in 1960, like, it was unheard of. Yeah. A killer turning filmmaking equipment into a weapon. It sounded pretty absurd. Which is why he got away with it as long as he did. Yeah,
if you had pitched that to the police back then, the killer's weapon is a camera tripod with a spike in it, they'd probably have laughed you out of the station.
Yeah. Like in the aftermath of Mark's death was chaotic. Scotland Yard now had dozens of reels of incriminating film. And not just the murders, but also his childhood footage. An archive of abuse that explained, but it didn't excuse the monster he became.
One senior inspector quoted in the Times said, "The Lewis case presents an extraordinary study of criminal psychology. The subject of both victim and perpetrator, shaped by experiments no child should ever endure. His actions were monstrous, but they cannot be entirely separated from his upbringing. Meaning his dad was the worst, but that doesn't mean we're letting him off the hook."
Yeah. And Mark's father, of course, wasn't alive to face consequences, and he had passed years earlier. But in many ways, he cast the longest shadow over the case. Every murder Mark committed was an extension of those childhood experiments.
It's like his dad built the machine and Mark just kept running until it broke down.
Yeah, and the press had a field day. For weeks after Mark's death, newspapers ran lurid headlines from the Daily Mail.
"Tripod Slayer dead. Police sees dozens of horror films."
From The Guardian.
"Cameraman's double life ends in suicide. Reels of terror discovered."
And even from the Evening Standard.
"The face of fear. Killer film victims' last moments." And every single one of those papers sold out instantly. Mm-hmm. People love a scandal, especially when we've got all the ingredients here. Sex, death, voyeurism, science gone wrong.
Yep. In fact, the case sparked debates about science, ethics, and media. Should Dr. Lewis' experiments have been allowed at all? Did the obsession with cameras and filmmaking encourage Mark's compulsion? Was society in some way complicit for ignoring his odd behaviour?
The answers of all this, those questions are yeah, they did. Yeah. But also no, but look, it was the 60s. That's the problem. People were still figuring out that cigarettes weren't fucking vitamins.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they didn't know yet. It wasn't like today where there's a camera at everywhere you turn. Now you just assume there's a camera pointed in your fucking face. Yeah.
Exactly.
Because we have one in our pockets constantly. There's ones hanging from your fucking
There's ones on the street corner. You can be trailed wherever you
walk into
go.
a shop, you walk outside of a shop, you walk down the street.
Houses, dash cams, you name it, it's there.
You are on film more often than you're not.
Google Earth.
Days. Do you know?
Yeah, exactly. And police reports also revealed how close Mark came to being caught earlier. There were multiple mischances. Witnesses who had seen him with victims, studio workers who thought his behaviour odd, even Helen's mother who outright told her daughter that he was dangerous. But he slipped through, partly because he blended in, partly because his crimes were so unusual that investigators couldn't quite believe what they were seeing.
It's classic hindsight problems, really. Looking back, all the signs are obvious.
Like, oh yeah, of course it was him.
But at the time, they're just weird coincidences until it's too fucking late.
Yeah. And still in the end, Mark caught himself. His final act, suicide by his own weapon, was the ultimate expression of his obsession. He wanted to capture fear, and in the end, he captured his own.
That's the tragic, twisted poetry of it. He spent his whole life filming people's last moments, and then he made himself the star of the finale. Yeah,
exactly. Helen Stevens survived the ordeal, although accounts say she was deeply traumatized. Obviously, She cooperated fully with the police, describing Mark's confessions, his films, and his disturbed state of mind. Her mother, who had distrusted Mark from the beginning, reportedly said, "I knew that man was evil the first time I heard him move about the house."
Yeah, I bet Helen never got to live that one down.
Telling you now, Helen probably went unmarried for life. I wouldn't trust another man. I'm
just going off what her mother would be saying.
Oh, yeah.
Her mom would be sniff testing every guy walking through that
Let us hear you walk up and down there and I'll tell you if you're a good guy or not.
Him. It's like, yeah, but remember Mark? Fine, Mom. Right, okay.
You're warning every boyfriend she brings home, you need to stomp. As for the reels, they were classified as evidence and locked away, and rumours persist that some investigators, all right, Sean Connery, watched them and were haunted by what they saw.
Well, of course they watched them. I guarantee. I always pity the poor dude that's got to work in the fucking child porn section of the fucking police, you know, that has to see all that kind of footage all the fucking time. I can manage the murder stuff.
I couldn't do that. I would be like, if they tried to move me over to that section, I'd hand in my notice.
But again, you're talking about 1960 where people saw very basic horror movies like Frankenstein and stuff like that and passed out in the fucking theater. You know?
Lobstermen from Mars.
Yeah. So a detective later said anonymously, those weren't just films, they were crimes on celluloid. You could see the exact second the victims realised what was happening to them, and it stays with you. Yeah. That's probably the understatement of the fucking century. Yeah. Imagine clocking into work in Scotland Yard and being told, "Hey, can you screen these snuff films and take some notes?"
Yeah. It's a bit fucking...
I just have to pretend I was watching horror movies, to be honest.
I don't think I could do. I remember watching the Buddy Holly story, and it kind of, like I told you this before, and you don't even see him go down the plane crash or anything. It kind of freezes and he's happy on stage and it's a happy expression and it zooms in. It was Gary Busey and it zooms in on his expression. And it's kind of like a happy, sad ending, but I mean, like, that fucking stayed with me for ages because you know what's coming, like, so I definitely couldn't work in that. Just something to do with that. But anyway, in the decades since, Mark Lewis's story has remained one of the strangest and most disturbing in British criminal history. His case is studied by criminologists as an example of how childhood trauma, scientific malpractice, and unchecked obsession can combine into tragedy.
Basically, don't terrorize your kids for fun.
Or experiments.
Don't build weapons, auto cameras, and maybe, just maybe, check on your quiet tenant once in a while.
Exactly. And yet, despite the horror, there's something haunting about Mark. He wasn't a killer for money or revenge. He was a man trapped in his father's legacy, desperate to make sense of his fear.
Again, not excusing him, but it does make him different
from
other
BTK.
People we covered, you know?
Yeah.
Most killers leave you disgusted. Mark leaves you unsettled and you feel almost sad for him. Like you just watched something you weren't supposed to see or something. You've seen him be abused. You've seen what's going on. And then this kind of read about him and study him, you realize this is a man that wasn't well. And again, this is something that we're going to be dealing with for the next fucking 4 weeks now of two separate men, Mark Lewis and our subject next week, of people who just got a raw fucking deal, man, and just dealt with it badly, dealt with it wrong.
Exactly. So what's the legacy of Mark Lewis? Some say it's a cautionary tale about science and ethics, and others say it's about the dangers of obsession. For me, though, it's about how fear shapes us. Mark's whole life was fear, inflicted on him and then inflicted on others. And in the end, fear destroyed him.
For me, it's about one very important life lesson. If a guy ever asks you to come down to his basement to watch some private films, the answer is no. Yep. Always fucking no.
Wise words.
And maybe also never trust a cameraman who insists on that you look directly into the lens. I mean, like, isn't that like fucking film?
You don't look in the camera.
Don't look at the camera, man.
That cracks me up. Do you ever see in background, like some sitcoms, like you'd have the background extras and they might glance the camera and it's like, oh my God, it's so fucking annoying. Yeah. Or even just a little glance and it's like, you knew the one place not to look. Or is it a thing of, oh shit, I'm after being told not to look there. And it's like that little mind's voice. Don't look. Quick look back. Yeah. Mark Lewis's story is tragic, disturbing, and unforgettable. A boy raised as a lab rat for his father's obsession with fear, who became a man consumed by the same obsession. A killer whose weapon was also his art, and who, in the end, became his own final subject.
Yep. The Camera Fiend, the Tripod Slayer, or, London's creepiest neighbour.
Yeah. Was he London's creepiest later? I mean, Rillington Place.
All right, by 1960. Oh, no. Yeah, that was before 1962.
That's, yeah. And I think, what was his name again? Rillington Place.
I feel too sad for Mark to call him the creepiest neighbour.
No, I feel bad for that. But anyway, that concludes our coverage of Mark Lewis.
I have to admit, whatever about Mark Lewis, I'm never going to look at a tripods the same way again.
Oh, I've been checking them all. So every time we set up, like you said, the first time you tell me to look straight into the camera lens. Anyway.
So that's what happens when you got a bad dad. Next week, come on back. We'll tell you what happens when you got a bad mom.
Yep. And if you want more horror and crime fun, then head on over to patreon.com/the Horrorverse Network and check out our bonus show. It's live action because tomorrow we'll be dropping our bonus show episode where we list or dig a bit deeper into Mark Lewis and compare him to other killers like Ed Gein, Ted Bundy, and the repulsive BTK Dennis Rader.
And while you're there, check out the rest of our Patreon exclusive shows like Amy's Horrific History, Playing with Bones, where we just covered yesterday mass graves. Mm-hmm. And next week you're talking about preserved bodies,
basically,
right?
Basically, bodies that have been frozen in time. So that's Otzi, the ice mummy. I think we're talking about Colombian mummies and bog bodies.
And the first season of Celebrity Rap Sheet is wrapped and up there and ready to go. So go check out that now. It'll be back again after 4 weeks when we're done with Playing with Bones. Mm-hmm. We're going to keep going back and forth. 4 weeks of Playing with Bones, 4 weeks of Celebrity Rap Sheet. So right now we have the story of Fatty Arbuckle, Mabel Normand, William Desmond Taylor, and the Black Dahlia available to listen. If you want a little taster of it, go back last week. We dropped the Fatty Arbuckle episode in place of the Horrorverse headlines for a little taster. So you can go check that out now for free on this feed right here where you're at the moment. Just scroll down a small bit.
All that and mini monsters are available now at the Horrorverse Network on Patreon. Subscribe now for only $5 a month with a 7-day free trial for all new subscribers. And if you're into gaming, you can catch me on Twitch every Monday from 10 p.m. to midnight Irish time, which is 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. EST. And that's on Twitch at Amy Rose 9.
We'll be back next week with more tales from the Horrorverse. See you then. Same Alive time, same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love you. Bye-bye.
Hey, lady, love you. Bye-bye.